Did Dunki live up to the hype?
If we get caught in the desert, I'm not rescuing you.
Welcome to our Dunki movie review. We freshly just came out of the theater just watching this, and it was interesting. What do you think, Malik?
It was pretty good. It was like a movie of two halves, basically. Half comedy, half drama, so a little bit of everything, you know?
It was very interesting. And first, I'll preface this. I did see one or two reviews about this movie, and I think people are actually in between for it, in the sense that they expected a very big movie, and I think it delivered on being a good movie for sure. What do you think?
Yeah, it was definitely good. I can see, depending on where the reviews felt like the movie kind of faltered at, I can kind of have an idea of what that might have been. So, um, personally, it's kind of getting ahead to, I guess, some spoiler stuff, just slightly. I think some of the main message of the movie, while being heartfelt, was almost came across as like a little
Yeah.
preachy in a certain bits, you know?
Definitely.
Especially like knowing it's not going to get resolved in like a super satisfying way. You know, like problems with immigration aren't just going to be like,
It's not
you
gonna be
know,
solved in a
yeah,
day, for
exactly.
sure.
So, and that, especially in some of those moments, it was like, okay, for the result to come the way it will, this is kind of like going, you know. But all in all, I think it really did do a good job of telling like a heartfelt story about, you know, just the lives people lead and what they're
Yeah.
willing to do, you know, for the people they love, for their families. So it was really good.
Okay. No, I agree. This topic I think was a hard one, and I think it successfully met what it was supposed to do. The way it wanted to tell the story, I think it done it in a beautiful way. It did have comedy, it had romance, and the story throughout was solid. So before we start prefacing, I think the movie, if anybody wants to know, if you should know by now, the movie Dunky is on the premise of basically immigrating to England and what people go through and the different challenges they face to get there, and then also what happens when you get there in reality by going through these methods. So let's talk about the first half first. I think the first half was pretty solid. It was very building up the way it was, and it was interesting to say the least. I think it held me, and me and Malik were kind of watching, and we're like, we know where it's going.
Yeah, definitely. By the time it hit the intermission, I was like, wait, that was all set up. Like, that was literally just the first half. Like, I think it did a really good job of showing why people are willing to take the journey that they go on before they even do it. You know, why they risk, like it said, there's a 25% chance. Well, why even bother, you know? But it showed you why for, you know, the people they love, for their families, for money, for different things like that. But it was for the tone being for the reasons I'll say being what they were. The movie does a really good job in that first half of just keeping it light, keeping it entertaining. You know, the exam scenes, the studying, all the different things like that. It did a really good job of keeping it entertaining before it breaks your heart later.
No, yeah, I think the first half did a good thing. The one good thing I'll point out, and I love this about the trailers, people hate it that the director doesn't show too much in the trailer, but I love that. I think most of the trailer is in the first half, which I really enjoyed. I was like, okay, there's everything else is just a surprise. And I think the first half, Malik, you haven't seen Three Idiots yet, and I know people are like that movie is one of the gold standards in Bollywood.
Okay.
So he obviously made this movie, and then I did notice there are some similarities storytelling wise in this movie, and I think that's why people are judging this a bit more harshly because we were promised a movie that's gonna be like amazing, and honestly, I think it was a heartfelt story, and I feel like when you compare, that's when you start.
Kind of like he double dipped on a
Yeah.
previous idea, and so some people are like, "It was good, but you've been here before," kind of
Yeah,
thing.
the way the story was told, like I
Okay.
can see their point of view. Like you expecting something fresh and new, and it is fresh and new. Is just that the storytelling method. I think the director. You've seen Munna Bhai.
Yeah,
Like you notice he has the same idea of get you involved into the character, give you that emotional setup, give you that comedic setup. Like it was kind of like that also.
yeah, very much. Actually, reminded me a lot of PK, I believe,
He
where
made it too. So
yeah, so it's like that similar. I would say the scene where you know he's speaking to the judge, very similar to when PK is speaking to the religious leader, and it's
Yeah.
like that heartfelt plea, almost breaking the fourth wall, speaking beyond just the people in the film itself, but more so to us. And it's the type of thing that you feel like they'd show it directly to these people. So, but yeah, it definitely, you can feel that sort of similar like techniques, and as far as like the way they shot, the speeches they give,
Yeah.
what he's going for, definitely is very similar here.
But I think it's his artistic style at this point. Like we have directors with their own styles. We have Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese. You can tell when you're watching their type of movie, and I feel like this has
Sure.
become his type of movie. The way he tells it, it has a message. It's heartfelt. It's a story.
Yeah.
And I think in the first half it delivers. It does have an emotional scene. Um, I won't ruin it by saying in the trailer you expect some people expected certain things to happen from it, and they do, but they still grab emotions. Like I know Malik, if you watched it a month ago, I don't know if you remember it, but I think the first half was emotional, comedic, and fun also.
Yeah, I think from the trailer, I think the biggest joke of the movie possibly with
Yeah.
I swear on my grandmother's life I'll never go to India, and she dies and he goes in. Like that was obviously, that was probably the one joke they spoiled, but they gave away. But the moment that scene was approaching, I was laughing all over again.
Yeah.
The comedy was really well done. So what they did give away, it was fine. Because
Exactly.
this movie was about 2.5, 3 hours or so.
Yeah.
So even if you give some away in a trailer, there's still a lot to pull from, and there's still a lot to give later. So
Okay. And I agree. So now let's talk about the second half.
Yep.
And this is where we can also talk about falters. And I don't think it's more of a falter in the sense that the story doesn't really dip. It does show you another side that of traveling abroad. And I think we expected that in trailer, but like it shows you also the problems, the things you can get, and what struggles people face also. And it does give you that same emotional impact and same story impact. But one thing I do feel like was I don't feel like it was long. I didn't feel like it was dragging, but there were scenes where there were moments where I was like, should this be condensed or where is this leading to? And where it does lead to, I think is satisfying, but it has that feel where it is a little. You do feel a little long. How do you feel?
so let me see. The second half, starting from their journey through, from India to London, they definitely, they took some time to show the journey for what it was, harsh. They're in that container for a month basically. They can't, there's no fresh air. They're going through the water, going through the desert, getting caught. But then eventually showing what the reality of the journey was. They run into their friend, and he's, like we have all over Times Square, the statue, painted people holding still, but he sold them on, the luxury of everything that he didn't even have,
Exactly.
hiding from the police, having to marry drug addicts, all the different things that everyone was trying to do. I think the most impactful scene for me, honestly, it wasn't, the court scene, but it was actually after Manu started painting herself, and there's that scene where she's just standing in the square.
Don't spoil too much now.
Oof,
Don't spoil
oof.
too. I know.
Oof.
Don't
Oh.
spoil too much.
But yeah, I'll say when she's really coming to terms with the decision that she's made,
yeah, with the
and
reality.
she's there, and it's like originally when they were building up to that decision, I felt like I kind of got lost on the sauce a bit. I thought like the moment they made the decision, it would be like, okay, cool, we're citizens now.
We're gonna make money. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
but it
easy.
was like, no, you can be here now.
Exactly.
Like it's still the grind, it's still the struggle, it's still everything building up to that. So in the end, like seeing him, the decision that Hardy made, it was like maybe he did come off better for it.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. So
And I think the one thing about this movie, we mentioned it before, we had a feeling it was gonna be this, and it does. I think it literally catches the phrase, "The grass is always greener on the other side." Like this movie shows you like the benefits and the cons that you're gonna face with any decision, and then I feel like this is where the movie is gonna be. I think why people are divided, because traveling to London, America, everything, people from abroad, this is their dreams. So I think the first half, 100% they're on board. And the second half, I think, is either going to be a 50-50. And I think it's the same way for people that live here already. That first half might be I don't know if it will grab. I think it's gonna grab their attention, but it won't catch the emotions of the same people that are in these characters' shoes, that live abroad, that have this dream, the American dream, the London dream, that if we go abroad, we'll make money. And then it goes the same way for the second round, where it's like the people that have done that, and like also the people that live here, and they know how hard it can be. And this movie also shows that. But when you're thinking of a dream, this movie shows you like you can be blindsided, and then when you start facing that dream, even the small problems you have to face up to it, and you don't want to give up because at that point you're too deep in. So I feel like that's what this movie really goes with, and I think it delivers on that emotional aspect. I feel like the only part for me that kind of took me out of it was it is emotional, but there's scenes that I feel like, without spoilers, like the ending is very emotional.
Yeah, for sure.
But I feel like it was a little abrupt. I feel like it's a little bit of an abrupt ending. So like I see what was kind of, the twist came, and I was like, oh, okay. Like there's few twists in this movie, but the ending twist came, and I was like, when Manu tells him something, like when they're in a certain location,
Yeah.
and then it happens later on, you're just like, I knew this was coming, but it was like it's very melodrama. But I know it's gonna grab people's attention for sure. It'll get people emotional. But for somebody like me who's seen so many movies, it comes off a little like, did we really have to do that twist? It could have been a little like.
Yeah, it could have been more of a lesson learned a bit more naturally. I guess not to say that she didn't learn it naturally. Life happens,
Yeah.
There are some events cause you to really reflect, but instead of her wanting to, instead of I guess her main motivation coming to her like, what am I even doing? As opposed to like the spark that does
Exactly.
drive her to
Do it.
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that was one thing, like her motivation. I feel like Manu's character. I think one good thing this film, I think all the reviewers are also mentioning, the characters are very well. You care for Shah Rukh Khan, who's the main role as Hardy, but you feel for these other characters too. They set them up in a way where even though they may be side characters, you care for them. I think that's important for storytelling, and I think obviously that's something Rajkumar Hirani has nailed. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like the scene, try not to spoil too much when they're trying to learn, they're in class and, they go drinking with some of their classmates and they take the time to really devote to showing why these people are willing to take this risk. And it's something super relatable, but really putting names to faces and putting stories, relatable. Maybe some could be exaggerated. You don't know. This is coming from someone who's lived in one of these destinations, fortunately. So it definitely did a good job of like adding the different reasons, someone doesn't want their mom to work, to her later life. Two people had that kind of idea. Someone lost their home.
Yeah.
There's all these different relatable reasons that you can understand, even if the journey is like, man, I don't
Crazy.
know. You
Yeah.
might as well, you might as well stayed home. But I think I don't have a problem believing that everyone who took the journey that they did truly felt it was the option that they had given the circumstances.
Yeah.
You either stay here and you're gonna die 100%, or you go and 25% chance.
Yeah.
But either way, and in the end, it's gonna reach the same point. So.
And this movie isn't for the fact that, like, without spoiling much, it's not the fact that, going abroad is not something successful for anybody. No, I think they hint at, like, it's the ways people do it, what they expect. Of course, if you work hard and do everything, like, the plot of this movie is just simple. I think, given in the trailer, is just you're going to miss home no matter how successful you become, even if how bad you may. At the end of the day, you're always going to have your home, your family members that you care for. And I think it delivers on that aspect, for sure. Okay, so we'll actually try to wrap this up. But one thing I will say for this, Malik hasn't seen all of Shah Rukh Khan's movies, and I know people came for the emotion. For Shah Rukh Khan, he's considered one of the most romantic actors because I think you saw the emotion he brought to the character.
Yeah, for sure.
Just Hardy himself, he gave it his all.
Yeah, and a lot of the roles we've seen him in, there's a lot of that. There's always a scene where he's allowed to just emote, kind of like show his stuff. Show
Yeah.
why he's the star. Always tearful, always
Yeah.
face shaking. But that's kind of what he does, and I think you could see that's why he's charming in a lot of his
Exactly.
roles. He's even though he's sort of like he's the guy.
Yeah.
There's still that relatability to him.
So I think for sure this is Shah Rukh Khan's best movie this year, beating Pathan and Jawan for sure. Um, it's one of his most emotional scenes in a while. It's not, I don't think it's his most romantic film. I don't think I think it's well above average compared to some of his other films. This will be one of his, I think, career movies also. Not the only one, maybe not the best. That becomes under what you prefer. If you want romantic, if you want story, because he's given a lot of us those films. But I think this will be one of those films that is going to be remembered in the sense of it was a solid movie. It made people feel the emotions. Maybe after a while, you watch it again, like after a while.
It does seem like a classic movie. Every few years, you throw it
Yeah.
on, you watch it with the family, cry a
Exactly.
little bit, laugh a lot. So
Yeah, and I think for especially for people in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, any countries where people have this dream, this movie is gonna kind of hit them, and especially the people that made it here, going through, it's definitely gonna hit them hard because they're gonna be like, kind of is the reality.
I could definitely see like parents putting this movie on. See, you want to go to America so bad? This is what you want to do? Is this what you want? You know, like I could definitely see it some of that too.
There's definitely gonna be some blackmail, but there's also gonna be some reality.
A lot of emotional blackmail,
Yeah.
but that's the best part. There is reality as far as the success and the potential failure of it. So, but as far as what you rate it, I'm interested in hearing this because you're a little. I think
I
you're a little
know.
harsher than I am. So
I'm usually very harsh on this, so I try to be nice. And I was thinking throughout this movie because I think it was the previous reviews that I watched in the morning before seeing this that kind of skewed me because I started getting controversial topics. Oh my god, it's not the best movie. Oh my god, it's not delivering. But then I think it falls under the hype versus reality.
yeah.
I think the movie's a solid movie, and for me to base it off the hype, expecting something revolutionary for the next 10 years, maybe that was a bit too much. And if I'm just gonna look at it solely from movie's perspective, especially what I rated Jawan and Pathan, there's no doubt I think I have to give this movie an 8. It's a solid movie.
I agree. I'm right there with coming out
Okay.
coming out my seat. I was like, I'd give it an 8. Like I said, I do think this movie succeeded in being a classic. I definitely think this is one of those you're gonna watch from now on. You're not gonna. This ain't a one and done.
Yeah.
You're not gonna forget it. It definitely feels like a movie that like you watch with your family, your friends, your
Exactly.
kids later, possibly. So this was a great movie. I definitely feel like it was an 8. Maybe even a little. The comedy really hit. Like I can't. I was genuinely like
Okay.
laughing out loud, So, and it looked really good. The characters were endearing, so I could give it an 8, maybe even an 8.5.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
feeling
okay.
feeling generous today.
Feeling generous.
So get the extra half point in there, but definitely a great movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
But let's keep it at an 8. Let's keep it as a solid movie, especially because emotions hit. It was romantic comedy. It had it. Keeps you there throughout. Maybe for those dopamine guys that need it or girls that need some of that dopamine with extra action scenes or fast-paced things, you're not gonna get that in this movie. You're gonna get. It's not a slow burn. It's a moderate burn. You enjoy the pace. You enjoy the story. If you're in it for the characters, if you're in it for a nice like life lesson, story lesson, just a good story, you're gonna think it's an 8. I think to discredit it from that is because you'd be comparing. So I think it was a solid movie. I think it's worth a watch for sure. What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely give it a watch. Definitely enjoy yourself. Come have a good time. It'll be great. You won't regret it.
And I'll end it with this. I will probably do a spoiler review, but for the spoiler review, I'm gonna start it off just by just mentioning this. No spoilers. Hardy's a real one. Romance is real. The guys are romantics. If you want to know what that means, you can check it out in the spoiler review. Thank you guys. Like, follow, subscribe, and we appreciate you.
Yeah.
No.
ना चले भी